Fin, 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 fin. There you go. It's your man, Manny Faces. What up, everybody? It's Hip-Hop Can Save America, part of the world's most enlightening hip-hop media ecosystem. This is the live stream show. And sometimes we take parts of the live stream show and we put on the audio podcast, and we have a newsletter, and we have a whole bunch of things. You saw right there some supporters, a bunch of supporters. Once again, thanks to our supporters who help make this show possible by putting a few dollars a month into the pot. This is the gig economy, after all, and I'll be doing these gigs, and y'all be economizing. So I appreciate you. A couple of names that weren't in that little thing that I just want to shout out real quick. Some new folks. Randy S is a supporter. Tere Moana is a supporter, and Latoya is a supporter. I don't know if any of them are here tonight. It's a little bit slow tonight. I didn't even want to do a show tonight. A lot of folks might not be tuned in tonight. A lot of folks might just need to decompress tonight. A lot of folks are going through some things tonight. So I understand if you're not here live. You might be checking this out on the replay. Shouts to the replay crew. I appreciate you for tuning in and turning up with us on Hip Hop Can Save America. There are some people today in America. We're not going to get too political because that's like the name of the game today. And that's why people are so stressed and depressed and need to decompress. Bars. But we are going to say a couple things about the things that are happening in the world. So here we are. Silent Night's in the building. What up, Silent Night? Silent Night says tonight. Did I say today? I mean, I've been drinking since like 3 o'clock, so this one's going to be sloppy, my man. Shouts to Silent Night, by the way. You heard the opening song, the opening salvo to this show is his song Ogre. Ogre is available on his Bandcamp page, Silent Night. Is it silentnight.bandcamp.com? Or silentnightisbusy.bandcamp.com. Damn it. I can't remember everything. silentnight.bandcamp.com. Silent Night is an exceptional. Oh, tonight. Yeah, tonight. I was doing a refrain. You know what I mean? Like you bring it back around to tonight. This tonight, that tonight. You know what I mean? Anyway, you might be watching this in the daytime and it won't make any sense. Silent Night's song Ogre is available only on his Bandcamp, silentnight.bandcamp.com. And you can check out his work. We're going to talk a little bit about Silent Night tonight because he's a great artist, great friend of the show, great friend of mine. And he's done some work in the political journalism sense. All right. Some social justice journalism that we do together in terms of a podcast and some music and some news and a nice little amalgamation of things. So we'll talk about that briefly tonight. This is going to be a short show, probably. Shouts to you if you're in the audience checking us out live. Please say hi in the chat. Let us know you're tuned in and turned up. I have a couple of thoughts about today and what it means, but I'm by no means a political pundit or anybody other than a guy, right? I'm just a guy. And I know about some hip hop stuff because I talk to enough people that work in the intersection of the worlds that we operate in here, which is hip hop, not just as entertainment. We love hip hop to be entertained. It's fine. It's great. We can have our talks and our discussions about our top 5 dead or alive, or how we feel about Snoop and them performing for this or that. That's all worthy, or Drake's lawsuit. That's all worthy of talking about. And people talk about that stuff ad nauseum. You can find plenty of places to listen to great minds just dissecting and evaluating all of these things. Here, what we talk about, though, is how hip-hop can help make the world a better place. Not through entertainment, but through action, through actually improving the lives and livelihoods and communities of people all across the world. But we like to start with America. We're starting at home, and particularly and probably most importantly, the communities from whence hip hop came. Communities that have been historically underloved and underserved and under-resourced by the political powers that be. And some may say that those communities are going to be even less resourced and even less funded and even less loved now that there's a new administration at the top of the political ticket. So it might be that a show called Hip Hop Can Save America is more prescient than ever. to say, listen, how is that possible that hip hop, this genre, this music, this art form can actually help save America? Well, when I started this show in 18, the idea was just that there are people doing work in these intersections of hip hop and education, hip hop and health and wellness, hip hop and science and technology, and politics and social justice, that are improving lives and creating more equality and equity and justice in the world in ways that aren't really being talked about, aren't really being amplified or signal boosted, and can't be done in any other way except if you are using hip hop. Really unique stuff. So if you know me and you know the show, you know that we talked. I'm just a guy. I'm not the president of hip hop. I don't claim to speak for all of hip hop. It's not a monolith. We're going to talk about some differing opinions tonight. But I will say that I talked to a bunch of people, over 100 episodes so far of this show, this podcast, that are actually using hip hop in ways that can help uplift like your life and your child's life and your community's lives in ways that none of these politicians, I don't care what side of the political aisle you may reside on, none of them are doing. And I think that means that everybody from across the whole political spectrum would want to pay attention to what we're talking about here. If we talk about better educational opportunities, better mental health opportunities, better health in general, better access to fields like science and technology, that if you're poor or your school district is poor or your community isn't, one of the elite privileged ones, that you may not have access to. And I'm telling you, and again, don't take my word for it. Go back through the archives and talk and listen to all the people I talk to. I'm telling you that hip hop can solve for that. Hip hop has shown to do that. So this may be completely foreign to you, tuned in for the first time. Like, what the hell is he talking about? We'll talk about it a little bit tonight. But that's what we do here. So if you're new, you got a lot catching up to do, and I'm glad you're here. That being said, tonight I'm wearing my, I'm wearing my choice for president. Obviously didn't get high on the ballot. I think there was some, probably some inner strife between the Eric B and the Rakim side. Like, they've never really been on the same page in a long time. Probably a bad choice. But I like the shirt, so I wore it anyway. And I'm wearing it in my political mindset. One of the things that we do here is part of a hip hop ecosystem, hip hop media ecosystem, is we try to give you different lanes of input and information. And again, I'm not the end all be all. One of the things we're going to talk about tonight is something that we always do, which is called the hip hop news that isn't about dumb-ish. And I'm going to give you about 5 or 6 news stories that I'm pretty sure you haven't heard of, that talk about hip hop being used in innovative and inspiring ways that you probably, I'm guessing, didn't hear about on Hip Hop DX, on allhiphop.com, on whatever, if you're on Hip Hop Heads on Reddit. These are stories that are about hip hop, but aren't about hip hop like entertainment stuff. So they're examples of hip hop being used in ways that can uplift humanity, right? So we'll talk about that. And then we'll talk briefly about, and I want your comments, by the way. Please give me a 2 cents. I'm not just, this is not a one-way street. By the way, we have a Discord channel now. I'll put the link in the chat. If you're in a Discord, we have a really cool spot that we're developing over there. And I'll put it in the chat right quick. But it's a Discord service so that we can have these what do you call it? Discussions. So it's not just me talking to y'all. And I have guests on this show, if you don't know. I have guests, and I reached out to some guests. We had like 30 guests last year. 30 folks, educators and activists and authors and people who are using hip hop in really inventive and informative ways. And, the holidays, people, were slow to, get back into the mix, but we've got some invites out. We've got some people looking to schedule their time. And so we'll start having guests again, I assume by next week. But in the meantime, I want to make sure that we talk about a couple of things that, are important because we're very frazzled by what might be happening out there in the world today. So I want to encourage you all to check out the Hip Hop Can Save America newsletter. It is at Hip Hop Can Save America. It's at mannyfaces.substack.com. You can go to hiphopcansaveamerica.com for all of these things. You'll get links to all the things. We have a newsletter. Hey, Summer. I appreciate that comment very much. That is a beautiful comment. I like it. And I appreciate seeing you here. Summer is, of course, the eternal, like the permanent consulting producer for this show. She was a muse that helped start this show with me. She is the founder of Hip-Hop Hacks, which is a wonderful organization that incorporates technology. And so I was just talking about earlier, the way to get access to some of these fields that aren't necessarily open to, all of our young folk, be you in a school district that doesn't have a very robust computer science department or whatever the case may be. There are organizations like Hip-Hop Hacks that opens those doors, that brings folks, young people from these communities, sets up workshops, sets up seminars, sets up hackathons that now introduces those fields to young people who might not have previously had access to them. Hip Hop Hacks is one of those organizations. Summer rocks with that. She also runs the Mixtape Museum, which we've talked about on the show a bunch of times, which is an initiative to try to digitize and archive all of the mixtapes that DJs have produced over the years. A few episodes ago, we had a great episode about the Dat Piff Internet Archive, full of mixtapes, full of, digital mixtapes from a decade worth of DJs putting mixtapes up online, digital only place they existed was online. And then they went away, disappeared. Then the Internet Archive took over and they had all the Dat Piff archives and then they disappeared. So all this stuff is now gone in the ether. Just nobody knows when it's coming back. If it exists, does it exist offline? And Summer's Mixtape Museum looks at the same thing, but for like sort of the earlier generation of mixtapes, cassettes, CDs, like they need to be digitized. The originals need to be digitized because they're just going to obviously become rarer and rarer. They're going to disappear. And folks outside of culture might be like, who cares? Why do we need to digitize mixtapes? Why is that important? And of course, it's important because we have, people who make mixtapes. They're curators. They're documentarians. They're taking a moment in time, culturally and musically, and creating a mixture of sources and songs and music and selections that is unique to their perspective. That is just like if we were to be writing essays or we were to be writing poems or we were to be taking photographs of the world around us at that particular moment in time. It's super important. And these initiatives are some of the things that we talk about on this show. So if all this is like, oh my God, that sounds great, we should definitely do that. Yeah, we talk about that. Shouts to Summer, someone who's doing that. And obviously is one of the most highest loves of my hip hop life. So I'm glad to see you here. That being said, once again, stories like this could be found. See how much you get from just a comment? Just leave a comment and I give you a whole, how you say you give us 22 minutes, we'll give you the world. You give me a whole comment and I will sing your praises on this show. That being said, again, the Hip Hop Can Save America newsletter is available at Manny Faces. I used to have a button that would do this. Substack.com. Am I talking fast for y'all people that not from New York? I'll slow it down. In the chat, I've put the link to the newsletter. It's a free newsletter. We have over 1,500 subscribers at this point. It comes out about every 2 weeks. And what I do is I put out, sometimes I give you like my 2 cents because obviously I talk and I got some things to say about things. But the main purpose is to disseminate a list of hand curated. I collect them with love. Like how you walk around with a basket and you collect flowers in the meadow. I do that with hip hop stories, and I found that hip hop stories that are like really inspiring and innovative and inventive. I'll give you a couple tonight that are really dope, and you're gonna be like, oh my god, I didn't hear about this. So some days you're like, yo, hip hop sucks. Snoop Dogg is performing for Trump. That's not what I want from my hip hop. I hear music on the radio, or my younger people are listening to stuff, and I don't like what I'm hearing. It's cool for them, but it's not for me. I feel like my hip hop is gone. And I'm like, no, I got you. Like, I got stories of things happening you don't know about, like you're not hearing about. Come here, come to the newsletter, and let me share them with you. And then I come on the show and I share them with you here. So I give you a lot of, options. And this I just put this out yesterday in response to the aforementioned performance. And I'll give you my 2 cents on it in a minute, but I'm going to start with the news because I don't want to just let this be a me talking to you marathon. I'm going to give you something that I like to call hip-hop news that isn't about dumb shit. So like I said, let me switch to this view because this view is pretty dope, I think. Is this it? Nope. Damn it. There you go. All right. So what we're looking here this is the last news that I just put out, and it's a section that's called Hip Hop News that isn't about dumb-ish. And so we talked about like what I do and why I want to share this with you. So let's start there. At the end of this, I'll give you my 2 cents about how I think we should be looking at the whole Snoop Dogg, Nelly, Rick Ross, Soulja Boy performing for the crypto ball or performing for Trump's inauguration. I know you've heard about it. I know you've talked about it or you've seen social media stuff about it. And I'm not going to get too political tonight about what's happening in the political realm. There's time and a place for that. But I will caution us at the end of this show. It's not going to be a long one. Stick with me. That we shouldn't be like bending over backwards to if you want to cancel those folk, if you want to be mad about that stuff, yes, every right, it's all good, and I'm with you. But our focus has to be, or should be, I'm not telling you what y'all should do. My focus is, what I'm doing is, I'm looking at that, I'm noting it, and I'm keeping it moving. Because I know that there's more to hip-hop than that. And I know that the things that we don't like about that, hip-hop isn't the problem. Hip-hop isn't causing that. It's actually the solution to that, right? Because what we're looking at is, hyper-capitalism, and we're looking at, our artists just kind of doing what they do and falling into the money bag game, and that's fine. And the reason why they feel they have to do that or feel like they can do that is because that's how the world works. We have to change how the world works, not change how a few artists from our world act. So I'm going to give you that whole 2 cents at the end. It's the same thing I published in the newsletter. So if you know it already, you know it. But I want to make sure that while I have your attention in the early moments of the game, we give a little respect to some folks. DJ Juice, for example, as we talked about the mixtape museum with our good friend Summer, who's in the mix in the background. DJ Juice is a mixtape DJ who made a lot of waves and a lot of noise out of Trenton, New Jersey. Just passed away. He's 54 years old, super young. I'm almost there, and I don't like hearing when people die so young. So anyway, we mentioned his story. Again, things you're not going to hear about in a lot of your hip-hop news sources. I'm not necessarily trying to be disparaging to them. Where's the camera? Over here? This one? But you're not going to hear about this stuff if you don't pay attention to what we're doing here. So, or you're on newjersey.com, but whatever. That's the point, is that newjersey.com, Trenton, local, is going to big them up, but you might not hear it on the national news scale. But even if you're not from New Jersey, you need to know what DJ Juice did. Like Silent Night is saying here, Trenton legend, indeed, and beyond. And beyond. So shouts to the family and friends of DJ Juice, 54 years old. Brian Short out of Trenton, New Jersey. Been doing mixtapes since the 90s. Here's a quote here. Culture Freedom, one of the founders of the Trenton hip-hop group Poor Righteous Teachers, of course, some of y'all might know, said, like many of you, my heart is broken right now because Trenton, New Jersey has lost one of its sons, someone who gave the very best he had when it came to the thing he loved and poured it out for the world to see. Talking about Juice, someone I shared many laughs and arguments over the thing we both loved, hip-hop. It does, spark a lot of arguments and discussions. He changed the way many DJs would start their blend and or mixtape. So if you want to go and kind of catch up the legacy of DJ Juice, DJ Juice _, mixtapes on Instagram. And as friend Summer reminds us, he was a Justo awardee. Justo, the Justo Mixtape Awards, if you know anything about mixtapes and you know anything about hip hop, you know that for many, many years, the Justo Mixtape Awards were the pinnacle, the peak of recognizing mixtape DJs like DJ Juice. And he was definitely a recipient of them. I remember I was just doing mixtapes. I was just doing remixes. At the tail end of the Justo Mixtape Awards. Of course, Justo tragically passed away some years back, as his mixtape awards was actually reaching, great pinnacles. And I remember knowing I didn't know Justo. I was making remixes and I was putting out, maybe put out my first mixtape. And it was like one of them things like, oh man, I want to get a Justo mixtape award. Was the BB Kings? They used to have the award ceremony in BB Kings in New York. Anyway, so shouts to the late great Justo. Shouts to the mixtape DJs. We talked about the importance of saving and archiving and recognizing, the DJs. And we've lost a few DJs in the past few months, Clark Kent and folks like that. But an sort of a regional, like unsung hero. We forget that in the 80s and the 90s, the reason why hip hop got so big is because of regional DJs, because of mixtape DJs. It's how hip hop propagated throughout the world. It's how hip hop, was passed around from New York to the rest of the world. It was all by DJs. It was, DJs were the pollinators of the music and the culture. And so, these are folks that weren't just like, oh, a local DJ hero, but actually some of the, again, unsung heroes in a lot of cases. You hear about the big ones, you hear about the DJ Clues, you hear about the Funk Master Flexes, and you hear about the big DJs and the mixtape DJs, but you may not hear about the DJ Juice. You may not hear about the local North Carolina or Virginia Beach or, LA or Atlanta DJs that were actually bringing the music out and putting it out the same way. I have such reverence and love for mixtape DJs. And I think it was, so I'll always point out the last show Justo was alive for was at BB King's. So shouts to also the late BB King's concert venue in New York City, right on Times Square. It's a great venue, man. I love that place. And Summer says we need data on mixtapes. And yeah, we talk about this very often. These are the things we talk about on this show, friends and neighbors, supporters and haters. We talk about the need for hip hop to be treated as important as any other cultural movement in history, anthropologically, sociologically. Like you need data, you need research. And that's why a lot of times we talk about on this show. So shouts to Summer. By the way, if this interests you, this little quick aside we went on, again, her organization, the Mixtape Museum, go there, check it out, put it in your bookmarks. I assume there's a sign up, like a, what do you call it? A mailing list. It's mixtapemuseum.org. You can contact the Mixtape Museum, especially if you have mixtapes, if you actually have physical. I was talking to somebody the other day, they're not on the show, but out in the world. And, I pointed them to the Mixtape Museum artifacts. You have mixtapes, you collected mixtapes. It's just a great organization. Shouts to, let me put it on the screen so y'all can see it. Boop, boop, press the button, make things happen. Fancy pants. Shouts to the Mixtape Museum. Summer, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you came through tonight. And the first story I had tonight to share with y'all was, of course, the great mixtape DJ Juice. Once again, these are stories you can find only on the Hip Hop Can Save America newsletter at mannyfaces.substack.com. If these are the kind of things you like to hear about, I curate them, I find them, I collect them. I spend a lot of time every week making sure that we get the right stories. Of course, you might have heard this one. This one did actually make sort of like the rounds. The great producer Madlib lost his home. And unfortunately, a bunch of like musical artifacts and records, I suppose, and a bunch of things. I'm just trying to fix this. It doesn't work. I'm trying to fix the thing there. Just trying to make the thing look closer here. But lost his home and music equipment in the Los Angeles fires. Obviously, our you know what I mean? Hearts go out to anyone who lost life or limb or property in LA area wildfires, and them fires was wild. But Madlib was one of the hip hop legends. I just heard Tyra Banks, I think, lost the house. I saw that today. Certainly celebrities and people that obviously in the culture. But if you look at the city of Altadena, we know that it was like working class folk, regular folk. It was a predominantly black neighborhood that lost a lot of homes and such. And so we have to remember that it's not just rich people in Hollywood that lost their life and limb, but and I'm not here to tell y'all where to go to support. If you want to support the folks and do the things, you know how to do that. I just wanted to point that out from the hip hop side of things. The connections to the area. This one's not loading. So Chuck D, speaking about the burning of the thing, of the fires and what was happening out there in LA, there was some usage of Public Enemy's song "Burn Hollywood Burn," again, in a way to kind of, I don't know, provide a soundtrack to the drama. And Chuck D spoke out on this. And we see this sometimes. We see where like people will take somebody's music and use it in a way that isn't like authorized by the artist. We've actually had, speaking about Trump again, like I know this happened for Trump more than anybody else I could think of politically, but like they would play music at a rally and then like the artist would be like, yo, we didn't actually authorize you to do that. You can't do that. I think that because there was some idea that to some people that Hollywood burning or, that the inequities or the evil, that existed in Hollywood was like those chickens were coming home to roost somehow, that it was okay. And therefore they were playing Burn Hollywood Burn, which is a Public Enemy song. And Chuck D denounced that. He says it's a gross misinterpretation of his work. Burn Hollywood Burn, he says, is a protest song extracted from the Watts Rebellion, monikered by the Magnificent Montague in 1965 against the inequality when he said "burn, baby, burn" across the air. He wrote in a statement, quote, "We made mind revolution songs aimed at a one-sided exploitation by an industry. It has nothing to do with families losing everything they have in a natural disaster. Learn the history and Godspeed to those in loss." Thought that was interesting. A bunch of people taking a hip hop artifact, song that was out there and using it inappropriately. And Chuck D spoke out on it. I know we have different generations that tune into the show, and I definitely don't want to just make this an old school, an older generation. We're talking about Chuck D, we're talking about Madlib, we're talking about DJ Juice. But I do want to point out that we do have organizations that respect and honor the legends, the OGs in hip hop. A lot of times we talk about not giving the OGs enough flowers. And on the show, we've talked about archiving and honoring and the Hip Hop Museum in New York and different places like that. And so we shouted out our friends, shouts to our friend Red Summer and the folks at the National Hip Hop Museum in Washington, D.C. This is actually a great place to go if you happen to be in D.C. And check out the great artifacts that are held in the National Hip Hop what do you call it? Museum. in Washington, D.C., and they have a yearly induction ceremony where they celebrate some of our pioneers and legends in hip-hop. Their last one was at the end of last year. They posted their recap of the honors. They honored folks like Marley Marl, great producer, of course, behind the Juice Crew out of Queensbridge, New York. Kool Moe Dee. Fun fact: my dad taught Kool Moe Dee in college. Kool Moe Dee is a college graduate. And my dad taught him in sociology class on Long Island, New York. It was pretty cool. DJ Jazzy J, Soul Sonic Force, Lords of the Underground, The Treacherous Three, The Fearless Four, Robert Lee Taylor, Tony Mr. Wave Wesley, and John Ramo Chartier. I don't know how to say his last name. Doesn't matter. It's Ramo. That's what it is. And they have a video, and you can watch it. And we'll play a clip real quick. Let's see what's going on. See what they do out there in D.C.
Tonight is our largest induction that we've ever had. The National Hip-Hop Museum is a 501c3. We're a nonprofit organization, and we do this, we honor these legends because we care about preservation, education, and archiving.
A proud member, okay, of this association, and I've seen a multitude of my brothers and sisters in hip-hop honored on this platform.
Look at this thing, man. Look at this hip-hop thing. From when Mike Hank and myself, we released Rappers Delight in 1979. And from 79 to today, look at what it's become. Is this amazing or what?
This is amazing. So shouts to the people that not just in Hip Hop 50. You know, we see that all the celebrations and things that were happening in Hip Hop 50, like that year, everyone was doing all the things. But there are still organizations and people that are highlighting all the contributions by the legends and pioneers, many of them still walking among us, and they deserve their flowers. Shouts to the National Hip Hop Hall of Fame in Washington, D.C. You can check it out. It's right there by Howard University. I've been there a couple times. It's super dope. I'll give you a couple more. Remember, all of these stories, it's right there on the bottom here, the free newsletter. All of these stories could be gotten at the newsletter. So if this stuff is important to you or interesting to you, you can check out the newsletter for free, and you'll find out some interesting things that are being done in and around hip-hop music and culture that can help improve lives, livelihoods, and communities throughout the nation. Oh, we have some Trump supporters in the building. That's great. I see. I guess that's what it is. So that's cool, I guess. I mean, we're not really like calling it one way or the other, but all right, cool. Glad you're here. One of the stories we shared this week was really interesting. We like to talk about, so much of the hip hop coverage has to do with like the mainstream, and you don't find about people that are kind of in different communities or local. This is a story about Cecil So, who's known by his moniker So, and he is a Navajo, right? So he is a Native American, and he has a fledgling hip hop career, and he obviously creates music and mixes his cultural background, his cultural perspective, his lived experience in his music. It's a great story. I was intrigued by this and thought that we should, check it out and share that with you all, because these stories don't get shared on the mainstream outlets, and that's what we do. So we shared that story as well. This was interesting. You definitely heard about this. You definitely heard about this. You definitely heard about Drake and Kendrick and their legal battle. It's not something we normally go into because we don't necessarily talk about the mainstream stuff. That's cool. There's a lot of other people that are talking about that. But there is something interesting embedded within the lawsuit going on between Drake and Kendrick and UMG. It's actually an interesting case if you look at it from an intellectual property point of view. If you're an artist, especially if you're an independent artist, there's some machinations happening here that are interesting. We shared one story. The one story I'm going to suggest that you go to is on Complex. It's written by a guy named Sean Sotaro, who we know and friend of the show. And he's often covered some of the legal stuff that's happening within hip hop. So I recommended that story. I put it in the newsletter. Again, the newsletter link is right down there, so you can check that out. and follow that if you want to follow up more with this particular story. It looks at the lawsuit that Drake filed against the record company, kind of suing them for helping defame his character by allowing Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us to call him out for things like being a pedophile and, you know, other lyrical digs that Kendrick did. So it's a great breakdown of this lawsuit. You might have heard about it. You might hear snippets about it. We don't really look at social media. I don't really look at social media to tell me what I should believe or understand. But I do look at folks like my man, Sean Sotaro, who can break down a legal story in a really, smart way. And so I invite you to check out the story there. And then you can look deeper. You know, my man, the company man, Justin Hunt, is out there doing his videos, reactions to some of these things. He generally gets into it pretty well, breaks down a lot of these things. But a good starter, a good primer on the subject. I did see something interesting about that story where Drake was actually, part of what he's doing is taking him to court based on lyrics. And as we've talked about on the show, and as Drake has actually been against in the past, the idea of using rap lyrics as evidence in court. That's something that a lot of people are generally against because it tends to be misinterpreted. It tends to be done in a discriminatory manner. It's done against rap artists as opposed to not other genres. It's done where you're taking pieces of one song and pieces of another song, putting them together to make a rap artist that might happen to be on trial for a crime look worse than they are. And Drake was one of the signees on a petition that said that we shouldn't do that anymore. In fact, I have the book here, Rap Lyrics on Trial, and we've had a couple of episodes where we've talked about this. And it's interesting that despite his position that rap lyrics shouldn't be used in criminal cases against, young artists or young folks who may have happened to have made a rap song that happen to have some lyric that can be possibly construed as evidence against them, even though oftentimes isn't actually against them. Yet and still, he's happy to be talking about lyrics used against him in a lawsuit against him. So it's very hypocritical, and a lot of people were talking about that. Someone called Snoop Step and Fetch. Well, let's talk about it, y'all. By the way, this is Hip-Hop Can Save America, the show that looks at the ways that hip-hop and music and culture can help make the world a better place. Very serious about that. That was a little sample of things that I like to call
hip-hop news that isn't about dumb shit.
Listen, it's been a long day. I've been drinking for a long time. It was a holiday, and there was a lot of stuff going on. Presidential inauguration. I'm a news person. I have to pay attention to these things. A lot of people tuned out, and I understand. A lot of people were tuned in because they were excited about it. That's fine too. Whatever you need to, make yourself happy. Here's what I think about the revelation that Snoop Dogg, Nelly, Rick Ross, Soulja Boy, Rod Wave, possibly, 5EO Foreign, a few other heads, a few other hip hop artists were brought into the mix to perform at Trump's inauguration rally, or the crypto ball, which was like a pre-inauguration rally that was in support of Trump, but not really Trump. And there's been a lot of back and forth about this. There's been a lot of responses by Nelly, by Soulja Boy. We could play them. I'm just going to invite you to, if you care what they have to say about why they did what they did, go for it. Go check it out. If you're totally cool with them performing for Trump, then cool. That's fine. That's fine too. I think that part of the disappointment by some folk is that they expect that their hip hop icons are necessarily not going to, align themselves politically with the right, with the Republicans, with Donald Trump. And I think that's foolish. I think it's foolish to think that they would ever not do that, right? I'm not surprised, I guess what I'm saying. And we can cancel them. And if you feel like canceling them, like a lot of folks cancel Chrisette I've been drinking. Chrisette Michele a few years ago, then that's perfectly fine. But I'm also not surprised. And I also don't want to spend that much time on it other than acknowledge it, maybe wash your hands of these artists and then keep it moving. The reason why I say this, and I wrote this out, so I don't want to like just read the whole thing. And I was going to do an article about it. I was going to do a video about it, but the point is, I'll read the beginning of what I said. Is basically the gist of what I'm trying to remind y'all. For every Snoop Dogg rocking at a Crypto Brothers Trump rally, I'll show you a bunch of teachers that are using hip hop to help a young person get excited about learning. For every Nelly, I'll show you a collective of mental health professionals that are using hip hop music, culture, and sensibilities to improve the well-being of a person for whom traditional therapy did nothing. And for every Rick Ross, I'll show you a slew of independent hip hop artists that also work on the front lines of the fight for social justice, not just making songs about social justice, but are out there volunteering or part of an organization. My man Silent Night in the background right here actually does work with the Innocence Project. I talk about my man Majesty, rest in peace, who passed away several years ago, but was actually an artist and worked with artist rights, human rights groups. Like, there are artists, for every Rick Ross, I can give you a bunch of artists that are actually doing social justice work. And for every Soulja Boy, I'll show you an assortment of hip-hop flavored nonprofit organizations improving the lives, livelihoods, and of members of their community. Now, for every media outlet that's been sharing these stories of, oh, this is what Trump, Snoop did, and look at what Nelly did, and blah, blah, blah. These are stories that are meant to, like, bait you for engagement. The videos of Roseanne Barr and Tom McDonald making a rap song, which, whatever. If that's your thing, then that's your thing. I'm not telling you, but that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I hope you know that it's ridiculous. I hope you know that it's ridiculous when Roseanne Barr and Tom McDonald, Roseanne Barr with box braids and they doing a rap song. Like, that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But okay, it's fine. But it's not serious. You're not serious people when, like, you're doing that for real. But okay, the problem with the hip hop media outlets is that they're promoting that in a like, because they want to, like, show it to you and say, look how horrible this is, and then everyone says how horrible it is. But then they're not at the same time doing the things that I just told you about, highlighting teachers, mental health professionals, social justice artists, nonprofit organizations that are actually doing the work to help combat the things that you don't like that you're seeing in Snoop and them being at the ball. Like, you see what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is, yes, we can get mad. Player card's been revoked 100%. That's perfectly fine, perfectly reasonable. The Tom McDonald, Roseanne Barr, I seem to be talking about hard trash. Absolutely 100%. So cool. Let's just call it for what it is. I said, yes, it's important for sure to call out what would seem like sellout behavior from some of our genre's most iconic celebrities. But just as much as we might be disappointed, we should remember that these celebrities may have entertained us throughout the years. I mean, we've all been entertained by Snoop and Nelly. We've been entertained by them, sure. They may have even done some good things for their communities. Snoop has had a few good things. Is a football team for the thing, like they've done some philanthropic stuff. Great. But I said they rarely uphold or apply the true tenets of hip-hop music and culture to their careers. They rarely represent the core ideals of an inclusive, caring, inventive, and innovative culture, which is meant to uplift the lives of those being oppressed, not celebrate the success and the ascension of their oppressors, which is kind of what they're doing. They want to be in the room. So as much as entertainment's most successful and rich artists have never been and will never be true warriors for a more just and inclusive society, not when there is more money to be made by showing up for any side that offers a bag. This goes for the Democrats too, by the way. I don't think they did a very good job tapping into the hip-hop cultural zeitgeist. They put Megan Thee Stallion on the stage. They did a few things. But that's not what hip-hop people really feel. Hip-hop people are like everybody else. They have the same economic concerns. They have the same job concerns. They have the same price of groceries concerns. They have the same, problems with, maybe you might live in a town where the crime is high. They got a lot of issues just like everybody else. The thing about hip hop folk, though, from what I've understood, and listen, people gonna come at me and be like, you don't speak for hip hop. You ain't even from the communities, da 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 da. Doesn't matter. I talk to all the people that are. We have these discussions here all the time. And the thing that they're looking for in their politicians, right, is someone that understands them from a cultural perspective. So when we talk about culturally relevant pedagogy, it's a fancy way of saying, like, teach my kids the way they should be. Like, if my kids come from a certain cultural aspect when they come in the classroom, don't tell them to turn off that cultural aspect when they walk in the classroom. If they come from a Black community or a Hispanic community and they come in the classroom with certain, I don't know, styles of speech or walk or dress or banging on the desk, and you say it's noise, but they say I'm drumming, like, let's have some kind of understanding here. So hip-hop folk are trying to say, we can make that the law of the land, the way that it is. And this could benefit everybody if you just let us, like, take our cultural tenets, the inside, the core of what we do, peace, love, unity, and having fun, and translate that to whatever it is we're trying to do out in the world. We can do it better. That's a long way of saying what I try to talk about on the show and what the guests that we have here talk about. So I don't need Snoop to be a warrior for this. He's an entertainer. He's a capitalist. Capitalists going capitalist, right? You can revoke their past. That's cool, as you should, if that's your, thing. But what I said was, it's more important than ever that we recognize that what we're seeing is not hip-hop. It's a part of hip-hop, sure. Some of it is a pure bastardization of hip-hop, no doubt. And much of it are things that hip-hop's cultural participants have to work out among themselves. But what we're seeing does not represent the kind of hip-hop that we talk about when we say hip-hop can save America. For that kind of hip-hop, you're in the right place. This is what we talk about here. So I'm not going to waste a lot of thought and time and energy worried about what Snoop and Nelly and Rick Ross and Rod Wave and Tom McDonald and Roseanne Barr are doing. Believe you me, it will get worse and worse and worse, because if the political winds that are in power right now are welcoming those voices, more people are going to flock over there. More people from the hip hop world, more people from the crypto world, more people from the journalism world, more regular folk are going to think that Trump and his new administration is the way to prosperity. I can't predict the future. I can't say whether it's going to be or not. My opinion doesn't matter. I'm just a guy. I don't think it will, but I'm just a guy. So what can I tell you? What I can tell you is that that's not hip hop. What I can tell you is that if you are a person that wants I guess what we're saying is a more of the people, by the people, for the people, like really, I think some of those things really do exist in the hip hop community. And I say that if you're not familiar, get familiar. You might be tuning in for the first time. You might say, how does hip hop do any of this stuff? And I'm saying we have folks that are working to improve the education system on a much more one-on-one level with your kids, all kids from across all demographics, than what you see out here with private schools and people trying to make money on the education system. You're going to find people that have tapped into young folks who have had mental health issues. We've all had mental health issues since the pandemic. It's all been nutty for a lot of us. Traditional methods of dealing with folks that are having issues have not been that successful. especially when you're dealing with communities that have not been like properly addressed. And hip hop therapy, we've shown on this show, like we talk to people that have done this stuff for real and have research and numbers to prove it. They have receipts, it works. And it helps young people in communities, especially that have been forgotten about, but also across the board. It's a universal thing. So I guess my main message for tonight, again, it was going to be a short one. We usually have guests. I just wanted to kind of give you my 2 cents. It's been a weird day for a lot of people. But when we say that hip hop can save America, what we're saying is that there's a new way of thinking that can tackle some of the problems that no politician is looking at. Left, right, doesn't matter. In some ways, they are kind of both the same. In a lot of ways, both sides are not the same. And one side would not want to hear about these ideas, right? And so, you know, that's your job, to stay politically engaged and decide who has the best interests of your community at heart. What I'm saying is that there are ideas that have been enacted that can improve society in fields like education, health and wellness, science and technology, politics and activism, really community-based stuff that are out here and they're working. And we try to share those stories like we did tonight, and we try to bring those folks on that are doing that work like we will in the upcoming weeks. And so I hope that you stay tuned and turned up with us. Hip hop used to be about a message, especially when it came to political issues that affect the community. Now it's sold out, and this election proved it. So much so that even legacy media is affected. So, rated R, this is kind of what I'm saying. It's not that it used to be about a message. It still is. Hip hop, what you're talking about and what maybe people see, and that's what I don't want people to do. I don't want people to say, oh, I see Snoop and I see, and all these, and that's what hip hop is now. Hip hop is just chasing the money and chasing the bag. Of course, a lot of it is. It's a multi-billion-dollar entertainment industry. It feeds a lot of mouths. It makes a lot of people rich. Absolutely. So I agree that it used to be much more prominent, but it's not that it isn't anymore. That's the key here. Hip hop definitely can still have those messages. Definitely still has those messages. Has those people working in those for those goals. You say it's all a sellout. It's not. That's what I'm trying to tell you. There's a whole ecosystem of folks doing work. It's just not on the entertainment level. It's in a cultural level. Does that make sense? I'm saying, you said there's talking about all this change, but the only way to change it is through politics, possibly, with someone righteous like Trump, debatable, which is why we're here now and why the people made that choice. So I don't think that, I don't personally look at Trump as righteous. I'm from New York, bro. Like, we knew Trump before y'all knew Trump. And Trump was never exactly like this righteous figure. He does his thing. He knows how to, make moves and be a celebrity. And people wanted a celebrity president to do celebrity things. That's cool. I don't really see righteousness here. Can he fix the problems that we have? Again, I can't predict the future. I don't think things were handled that great before, but I don't think any president in the last 20 years has handled things great the way I'd want them to be handled. So, But we're talking about hip hop. And what I'm saying is that many of the issues you're talking about, many of the issues that are on the political stage in all of these discussions are being, attacked or are being approached by this dual political system. And it's very, both sides, very, very far from each other. There's sort of no middle ground, no real diplomacy, no way of meeting in the middle. And I think that that's has to do with a lot of people. There's money involved. There's big interests and all that stuff. I don't think either side of the political aisle is set to fix these problems. So I'm looking at where are the communities, where are the people that have like gone outside of the box, right? That have come in from a different angle, that have seen things from a different way. Hip hop wasn't supposed to be a global, influential, cultural and social force. The young teenagers, the young black teenagers in the Bronx created something out of rubble and despair that has now blossomed and gone out to the world. We talk about it being used to help people in school. We talk about people in the Next Level program that go out and use hip hop as conflict resolution in war-torn areas. Like there's policies and there's inventiveness and there's policies that can come from this unique cultural thing that honestly brings people together. We're here on Martin Luther King Day. And before I go, I'm losing my voice. We're going to show you an example of this. But it's been said many times that in no place on the planet does Martin Luther King Jr.'s, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream of, people being judged by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. That doesn't happen anywhere. Karis once said this in a speech in the Netherlands a few years ago. Said the Martin Luther King dream has never been realized in America or the world. It doesn't happen anywhere. The only place that it happens, that you can look globally and say, where can I find a social gathering of people, a cultural gathering of people, a group of folks that you will see all colors, all creeds, all religions, all ideologies in one place doing something together. Doesn't even have to speak the same language. Don't have to be from the same country. Don't have to be from the same neck of the woods. The only place that happens in the world is hip hop. Like, there's no, I know soccer and sports is great, but you have your teams, you have your tribes, you're going to stay, going to be against each other. You have religion. Religion isn't welcoming to other people. Like, that's very closed and excluding. Hip hop does that across the world. So we do our humanity a disservice if we don't at least consider the unique DNA of this movement that started here in New York. Well, in New York, I'm not in New York anymore. It started in New York, old habits, and spread to the world and is at its core about peace, love, unity, and having fun, inclusivity, bringing people together, and solving problems. That's hip hop. That's what hip hop does. Forget the music industry and forget all these, people with it. That's what hip hop is, and that's what hip hop does. So if we can get back to that, and there are plenty of people that work on getting back to that, then we have something that brings people together, can expose people to different ideologies in a peaceful way, in a diplomatic way. Because if they gang truced in the 70s, and they brought people from all walks of life together in the 80s, and in the 90s we were all in the same clubs, and everyone was doing music, and everyone was part of the same movement, and we all respected where it came from, and who created it and how it was created. And we walked in with reverence and respect for the art form, the genre, and the culture. And then the culture would say, well, you're welcome here. Let's work out these issues. Then humanity has a lot to learn from that, because politics hasn't been able to do that. Trump hasn't been able to do that. The Democrats haven't been able to do that. Progressives try to do that. Hip-hop's done it. So I'm saying, we can extract that DNA, we can extract that and do it with respect and authenticity and involvement. Don't do it like it's like we're stealing some stuff. We're not going to do that. We're not going to extract. We're going to bring people in. We're going to invite them in. We're going to say, how do we do this together? What do y'all need? What do you see? How do you see it? And we haven't done that. We haven't done that. There are no hip-hop people in the halls of government. I mean, there's actually more and more now. We start seeing on a local level. Shouts to my man Do It All, city councilman in Newark, New Jersey. You know what I mean? There's people doing it. So can we get more of that? Because there's something in the way the hip hop folk see the world. It's a different thing. It's just different. And it's about that at the core. Forget people that want to be rap stars and glom onto the materialism and all that stuff. I'm talking about the people that, look, I've done 100 episodes of this show. Go back and peep them. And I'll play one real quick before we get out of here. I'm going to play one real quick, which is, and since it's Martin Luther King Day, I got to do it. And I just had this the other day, not the other day, a few hours ago, and I spread it to all my socials. So of course now I'm not gonna be able to find it real quick. It's my man Unlearn the World. He was a guest. Unlearn the World is the director of education for an organization called Hip-Hop for Change out in the Bay Area, California. And during our hour-long interview, which you can go check, he had this to say, which shares what I'm trying to say. So without giving you too much, hip-hop has this unique ability to affect humanity. So this is, I feel that hip-hop has this unique ability to affect humanity in a positive way. Certainly this goes across the board and universal and worldwide, but most particularly and perhaps most importantly, helping uplift the lives and livelihoods and communities of, those from whence hip-hop came. Now,
100%.
But definitely across the board, it's one of those, things. So without giving you too much of my preachiness, which you've already heard me say probably in the past, what is your interpretation? When I say hip hop could save America, tell me I'm right, tell me I'm wrong, tell me why, tell me what you think of when you hear that phrase.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're very much aligned and we recognize the transformative nature of the culture that we love so dearly, right? Like that's number one. I don't think there's anybody in the chat or watching this that doesn't believe that hip hop has this transformative power. So now that we've recognized the transformative power, it's transforming what? What are we transforming, right? We're transforming ourselves first and foremost. I always say that hip hop is remix culture. When I introduce the history of hip hop to young kids or even kids at the collegiate level, I say you need to understand that hip hop is remix culture. Grandmaster Caz said hip hop did not invent anything, it reinvented everything. So as remix culture, what you are ultimately remixing by engaging in these elements is yourself. You are retrofitting yourself for the life that you are about to manifest and having the ability to articulate your desires, your intentions, and everything. Having the language to process your emotions gives you that ability to transform yourself. By transforming yourself, you can then transform the communities and the circumstances that you come from. Knowing that about hip hop, how do we then apply it across the board, right? I also often like to say hip hop is the dream that Martin Luther King was talking about.
Right.
When he says, I have a dream and white little boys and girls can hang out with black boys and girls, you go to an everyday hip hop show and that's exactly what you see, right? Biggie said it was all a dream. Now, when you look at that, what is dead smack in the middle of their two generations is the creation of hip hop. Right. So that's the dream that I think we're talking about, where we move away from these egotistical concepts of identity that are rooted in race, that are rooted in class, that are rooted in economics or politics or religion. And you go to a hip hop show, you go to a hip hop jam, you go to an environment where it becomes about the music. It becomes about the vibration and you see people harmonious. It doesn't, at that point, right? No different than the Bronx in the 70s. It didn't matter if you was a savage nomad or part of the Ghetto Brothers. I was just watching Rebel Kings yesterday. You came to experience the jam and you came to the jam under the auspices of peace, love, unity, and having fun. And if you didn't, you were coming to that jam to negotiate peace treaties with the people in the space, right? If that can happen in the hoods of New York City, that can't happen on a global level. That can't happen on a national level, like where we'd be ignorant to think otherwise. So we can recognize that it's recognizing the ability, but then having the will to implement that, having the desire to really want to change the world in the way that we see it change the world. And I think that just hip hop provides the broad-based principles that we can start agreeing on so that we're not all in argument. And I think that we're in a climate now where everything is polarizing and it's fraudulently polarizing because people need engagement, likes, clicks, and clout.
That's true.
So you say hyperbolic things because you want somebody to disagree with you. Right.
It's a hard time for a diplomat
It's really hard. So, but if you can kind of move away from that and just say, like, yo, can we at least agree, like, Biggie was a dope rapper? Okay, cool. Can we at
Right.
least agree, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, certain songs we can all vibrate to and chill and enjoy ourselves? Okay,
Right.
cool. Let's start there. And
Right.
from there, we can again align with broader based principles. Do you love your children? Yes, I love my children too.
Right.
We love children and we recognize the innocence of children. So why don't
Yes.
we do things in our lives to make our lives of our children a lot better?
Yeah. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Like, and you can do that under these broad-based principles that we find in hip hop.
Yep. So that echoes what I've been trying to say tonight and what I think the message is. It doesn't matter what you see out there in terms of the mainstream or the entertainment business or the rap industrial complex or whatever it is you might see. Snoop Dogg is not our savior. Nelly and them, it wasn't going to change the game anyway. Even someone like Jay-Z, who has done, criminal justice reform stuff, it's all questionable and debatable, and we can have those discussions. The real power, and it's not even it's, people we talk about now, like there's folks who saying, okay, we're going to rebel against, or we're going to resist against, or we're going to anti-Trump, or we're going to anti this, that, and the third. And we've gone through this before. So I'm not even trying to look at it in those ways. I'm really trying to find a way that we can just appeal to the humanity of everybody. And I just haven't seen that. There's nothing I've seen. And if you've seen something, because you could be Trump, you could be a Trumpian all you want and say, listen, we're all down for Trump. Look at how many, he won, he got the popular vote, and we're all down for his policies. But that's still only like half the country, if that, not even. And it's a portion of people who didn't even vote. So you haven't really won the people who are indifferent to politics or who feel hopeless, so hopeless that they don't even think voting for one party or the other makes a difference. Like, you can't claim a mandate, and this goes from either side. If Harris had won, I'd be saying the same thing. You can't claim a mandate when 30 or 40% of the populace votes, because that means that there's 60% or whatever the numbers, don't quote me, but that means there's a bunch of people that just don't even care enough to be part of the process. That means they're that hopeless, or they're that indifferent that what you're saying isn't even appealing to them. So you're only appealing to people who are engaged or engageable. And sometimes those folks are, just get caught up in the excitement of it, just get caught up in the celebrity of it, just caught up in the wanting to be part of something, because a lot of people vote against their own interests. You know what I mean? Again, this isn't a political show. I have shows for that. Go listen to Uneffing the Republic if you want to, I got shows for that. But people on both sides, on all sides, a lot of people are voting against their interests. You might say that Snoop and them performing is going against the interests of their communities, which have been traditionally not shown a lot of love from the Republican Party. So why is this switch? You might say, there's been an increase in minority voting for the Republican side. Why is that? Because the Democrat side has taken them for granted for so long. There's a lot of reasons why this is happening. I'm saying, I'm looking holistically, and I'm saying, I don't know what can solve the rifts in America, because someone on this side is so far from someone on this side that they're not going to see things the same way. But I do know that since its beginning, since its inception, as my man Unlearn the World talked about, as KRS-One talked about, as many people have talked about, we see something in hip hop that brings people together and somehow allows them to be in the same place at the same time, even though they may have differing things. And sometimes, my man's in them gangsta grass has shown this as well. Sometimes when you're exposed to that, it changes your way of thinking. And it brings you, I'm not apologizing for racists and for bigots. And if you're on that side, I'm not saying like, oh, we need to meet you where you are. No, we don't. Like, you're racist. You're a bigot. You're not. Either you change on your own. It's not our responsibility. It's not black people's responsibility. It's not, it's not like the person that's being oppressed. It's not their job to change, you know what I mean? To change the mind of the oppressor. It's not, you have to change your mind. And whether you do or not from your heart of hearts, who knows if that ever happens. But I'm just saying that there's something in the DNA that people have written books. I got books here about international hip-hop diplomacy. I've got people in the chat that have worked with people from across political aisles in mental health settings or whatever, and they're like, they're totally turned off to it. I've talked to people that are in college classes where you're teaching young people that have never been exposed to the culture behind hip-hop, only like this cursory like knowledge of it, and on the side, they don't really understand it. And then they get exposed to it, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, I never saw it like that before. I never really was exposed to, those communities and those struggles. And by listening to their lyrics and by having somebody kind of bring me through the history of hip hop and the history of these, like, trials and tribulations or struggles or whatever, now I can understand a little bit. I've just never been exposed to it. And that opens up a little bit of something. Empathy, understanding, cultural, understanding. I'm just saying that you never see it except in these rooms, except in this culture, except in this coming together of folk. So I don't know. Like I say, someone said, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm saying, as far as I'm concerned, hip hop can save America by helping decrease disparity, increase togetherness, because at its core, it's a culture of peace, love, unity, and having fun. Show me another culture that, like, that's literally their tenets. Show me another movement that's literally about that. Not some pie in the sky cult following, oh, we're going to worship a person, or we're going to worship what are them UFO people from a bunch of cults and stuff. You know what I mean? Not even religion. Like, it's a gathering of folks that says, I'm going to put all that stuff aside and we're going to understand and respect and honor this thing we do. And you can come from all walks of life. And so, again, this has nothing to do with the origins of hip hop, who started it, how it started. There's a whole lot being discussed about that. I do care. I'm not talking about that, though, and that has to be addressed and dealt with, and that's a whole different thing. What I'm talking about here is, especially with communities that have been underprivileged, under-resourced, and underfunded and underloved, hip-hop can level those playing grounds. It's being done. Schools, education, mental health, science and technology. It's being done. I have evidence, I have receipts, I got 100 episodes of people talking about it. Go back and listen. But it can also help universally across the board, because your poor white kids love hip-hop too. And they don't know no better when they're young. They get taught racism, not born racist. So if some of these universal tactics and methods of just being good humans to one another can be infused in different communities, then actually that's, to me, the only thing I found in my almost however many years of life, I don't like saying how old I am, that I've been in places where there's literally been like a real mutual respect for each other, where Martin Luther King's idea of being judged by the content of your character, or being judged by how dope you are doing the hip hop thing, because if you come in whack, we're going to call you whack, as, Kara's one of them said, but you out here respecting and trying your best, and you're trying to do, you respect and you honor this culture, we'll bring you in. You're cool here. That's how I got into this. That's how, like, anybody in hip hop got into it. We put our toe in the water and they said, come in. Yeah, let me see what you got. And you're like, and if you come in with authenticity and you come in with respect and honor, and then you get absorbed into it. I've just seen nothing else like it in humanity. And I think it gives us the tools we need to look at these problems different. May not solve every problem, but you gotta have this mindset. So I want hip hop people in education systems. I want them in the board of education. I want them in the advisory board of hospitals. I want them in the advisory board of nonprofit organizations. If you're not using hip hop in your organizational planning and you deal with the public, you deal with multiculturalism, you deal with young people, you're trying to like be more inclusive. If you're not considering hip hop and not just the music and the entertainment, but the way of thinking, the way of seeing the world, then you're missing out and you're doing your cause a great disservice. Anyway, I've been babbling on and on and on. So I missed chats. Is this live? Yes, Tyler, this is live. I know it. I haven't responded to, sometimes I go off on tangents. Woo-wee. This was supposed to be a short show because normally we have guests come on and talk about things, or I have a little bit more of a structure. And so I apologize, but I also thank you for rocking with me. Let me know your thoughts. Peace to Flow Story. Greatest guests on the planet says I have some great guests here and an outstanding newsletter. I did link the newsletter. We talked about a bunch of stories in the beginning of the show that kind of, they're like proof of concept of the stuff I'm talking about. There was a great story I shared earlier in the newsletter about a program in Philly being used to send anti-bullying messages and inspire Philly elementary students to develop career goals. So again, these are things that happen. They're in school. It's hip hop. It's music. This is a news program that went and covered it. It's real stuff. There's real stuff happening. DJ DZ introduced a panel of professionals with experience in various careers, including a ticket sales executive from the 76ers, a counselor working with incarcerated youth, a hip-hop artist who started his career at 13, and Chase Moore, who is an education equity advisor at the U.S. Department of Education. So if you bring in like career day. You remember career day? Like when we were kids, someone would come in and be like, all right, this is what I do for a living. It's like mad boring. You're like, okay, cool. This is what you do. But you do it with music. You have a little DJ going on. You have a little excitement. You're doing a little raps back and forth. You're getting the kids into it because this is what they go home and listen to rap. They go home and listen to music. This is the way of style of speech and lifestyle. So you bring it into the classroom, all of a sudden the classroom feels more inviting, right? Because normally in the classroom, and we've talked about this a million times with teachers that have been on this show, this is when the kids come in the classroom and they want to carry their culture into the mix. Teachers will be like, shut that down, be quiet, don't talk like that, sit here, we're sitting in a row. And it's very structured and very like traditional. Like, come on now. When you were in school, you didn't like that. You didn't like that. You didn't like being told exactly what to do. And I'm not gonna pay attention. Like, you're immediately putting me in a position where it's like, I don't wanna mess with you. I don't wanna hear you. But you saying, okay, look, hey, got this DJ today. We're gonna learn about some people and some job career choices, but we got a DJ, we're gonna rap. And these young kids, so they're kind of into it. I've done it. I've been in these situations. I've been I've talked to kids, I've been in schools. And when you come in with that kind of flair, they pay attention more. Simple as that. They pay attention more. You may not win them all over. Some of them may think you're corny. Some of them is like, you can't get to them, but I guarantee you come in with that kind of flair, they're paying attention. So why don't we do that with every subject? There's no subject. Science, math, English, social studies. There's no subject that can't get kids' attention better through hip hop, music, and culture. None, not one. So why don't we do it? So why aren't we doing it? So I guess that's what I'm trying to say here. I like there's some conversation going on in the chat. I'm not really following it. But y'all are doing it, so that's what's up. And then again, a couple of other stories that we shared in the newsletter. Basically just share the newsletter. Basically just subscribe to it. Again, we talked about this last week. I just want to give her a shout out again. Super dope. Y'all might not know this, but we talk about, I said there's no subject that can't get kids' attention better if you mix hip hop, music, and culture into it. Okay. So I said that and you're like, yeah, whatever. What about architecture? I mean, you may not have said that, but if you did, I would say, yeah, there's a hip hop architecture camp based in Detroit. Michael Ford runs it. He's been running it for several years. The Hip Hop Architecture Camp. And every year they run some like programs, and they can come to your city, by the way, if you want to contact them and bring them to your city or bring them to your school or your organization. And they have a workshop series, and they introduce young people to the field of architecture, which you could do. You could just do. But what makes it interesting is when you incorporate it and you tie it into hip hop music and culture. You might say, well, how can you do that? How can you incorporate architecture into hip hop? Now, I'm not the hip hop architecture guy, but they can do it. But I'll give you a couple of real quickies. Like, the reason why hip hop exists is because of architecture to a large extent. When you talk about New York City in 1970s, the layouts of the city, the structure of the urban, urban planning, like the way the subways, the fact that Robert Moses cut a highway through the Bronx to make the Cross Bronx Expressway and displaced many people. That created the neighborhoods that would then, birth hip hop. The fact that the projects were built in a certain way to kind of cram as many people into there as possible, but not really create a community involvement. It was actually taken from a French developer who designed projects. Like, the projects in Queens and New York were actually designed by a Frenchman who was like, we're going to pack all these people, but we're going to create a community. There's going to be a school. There's going to be a grocery store. There's going to be parks. There's going to be all this stuff. And then Robert Moses was like, okay, I like that idea, but what we're just going to do. And then Paris was like, no, it is too ugly. We don't like it. It is too, we do not like. So they didn't do it. But Robert Moses saw it and was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's cram all the poor people, Black and Hispanic mostly, poor people into these buildings. We'll call them projects, housing projects, but we won't have a community support. We won't have a school. We won't have a garden. We won't have a grocery store. We won't have a park. They'll just live there, and good luck. And so when you think about the way that, like, neighborhoods, and we talked about Marley Marl earlier, Queensbridge was a housing project in Queens where a bunch of rappers came from because they lived in the projects. And so there's a tie into architecture. So when you explain all this to young people, and now all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, they get, first of all, I'm a smart guy. I came out as a smart kid. My dad was a sociologist. I didn't even come up thinking that, like, the way my environment is designed can influence who I become. I grew up in a suburban neighborhood. So I'm a suburban kid, but a kid who grew up in the projects is a project kid. There's differences to how we came up. I didn't even think about those things. So what I'm trying to say is that when you're young, you don't even think that architecture, urban planning, civic design, like, that these are areas that A, exist, and that B, you could actually have a part in. Who better to design a city than people who live in cities, who know how hard it is to live in a city or to do a thing in the city? Like, that's who I want to design my cities. I wouldn't want to be a suburban kid, grow up, become an architect, and then go in and parachute into a urban area and design a layout or whatever. Who am I to do that? They need to be involved in it. So when you go into places that aren't normally taught, hey, you could be an architect, and you say, I want to teach you architecture. And they're like, I don't know, that sounds boring. And you're like, hey, here's some hip hop shit connected to it. And they're like, oh, that's interesting. Now you got people that wouldn't normally be involved in this field, totally open to this field. So that's what happens at the Hip Hop Architecture Camp. And Cameron Johnson was just the last architecture scholarship, $10,000, participated in the program, did all the things that you do. Applied for the scholarship, got a $10,000 scholarship. She's a sophomore at the University of Detroit's Mercy School of Architecture and Community Development. It's a beautiful program. I love all kind of programs that help expose young people to fields that they wouldn't normally be involved in. And again, when we talk about the problems of society, the reason why, poor neighborhoods remain poor is in part how they're designed. The reason why people in poor neighborhoods have worse health conditions is because of how they're designed. I've done work on other shows in journalism about redlining and, and areas that have, that were, designed for primarily poor, but it depends on where you're at, mostly Black or Hispanic or minorities, but sometimes poor white folk as well. Those communities have poorer health conditions because there are less trees and there's more pavement. And so it's a heat zone. It's what's called a heat, it's like a terrible word. It's like a heat oven or something like that, where these neighborhoods are just generally more toxic to human life because they've been designed that way. So, you want to talk about getting people in poorer neighborhoods to have better health outcomes. It's in the design. So this is a great way to tackle that problem from the origins, not retroactively, not having to redesign like neighborhoods and stuff, but to like get people in the mix in the beginning who might have insights about how to live in those areas. It just makes sense to me. Maybe I'm out of my mind, but that's what we talk about here on this show. And that's it. I mean, I got a couple of more things. We definitely want to, big up all the elements of hip hop. Red Bull does a, world breaking. We talk about breaking in the Olympics, and not everyone was happy about breaking the Olympics. But I remind folks that breaking happens all over the world, all throughout the year, including the United States. And there's local, regional competitions. It's Red Bull. It's freestyle session. It's, a bunch of local organizations that, do this sort of stuff. And so if you pay attention to the scene, you can actually be involved in the breaking circuit, so to speak. So we pointed a story. This was actually a Vietnamese artist who won the global Red Bull Dance Your Style competition. It will be in Los Angeles. It'll be in United States. The Red Bull World Finals will be in LA in 2025 this year. And again, freestyle session is another one. These are the kind of things we talk about right here at the newsletter. So definitely want to make sure that we, big up all the elements of hip hop, the dance, the visual arts, there's DJing, emceeing, knowledge of self, knowledge. So we talk about hip hop being used in academia all the time. That's what we talk about in the show. I thought it was gonna be a short one. We're really at kind of our hour and a half. Lastly, I just want to shout out again. Once again, it's he said, my projects went from having grass and no walls between buildings to fences between all buildings and no grass when they tore them down and rebuilt them. So, okay. Yep. I know I'd get on my timetables earlier as a kid if it was on beat. I mean, that's literally what's happening. We've seen math programs that have incorporated hip hop, English programs, kids that are learning literary devices, because like Shakespeare is hard to parse. But like, Kendrick and Jay-Z or JID or Corday or whoever they're listening to, they actually write with literary devices and similes and metaphors and all the things. And so if you can identify them in the lyrics that they know, the songs that they know, and then compare them to like the literary devices in literature, they just get it. They just get it easier, faster. They just understand it better. Like it's the language, it's how they speak. So I agree. I would have learned math better if it was on a beat. There's companies that vocabulary is out there that sell videos to schools, and it's all the subjects like science. The Science Genius I could talk all night. There's no subject K through 12 that can't make a child feel more engaged, more interested, and improve their educational output, their grades, their engagement, their understanding, their comprehension. There's no subject that can't be taught better with an incorporation of hip hop. They can all be taught better by incorporating hip hop. Every single subject, K to 12, we have proof, we have receipts. So you're not a teacher. Maybe you are. I'm not a teacher. I would go to my board of education if I were you, and I'd say, hey, I mean, come back, look at the other episodes. And I would say, hey, I learned from this dude on the internet that hip hop actually can make my young people like do better in school. And I want them to do, but don't we want them to do better in school? Of course we do. So if we've shown that, particularly in communities that have been less funded and less resourced, but across the board, because every kid today responds to hip hop music, like that's just the way of popular culture now. So we can improve everybody across the board. We can definitely improve the disparities in those communities, particularly communities of color and other, underfunded poor communities. But we can also just kind of raise everybody's like engagement. Why wouldn't we be doing this? That's what I don't understand. Forget political, like if your whoever's going to be in charge of the Department of Education under Trump or whoever was under Biden, are you talking about this? Then you're then you're out of touch. Then you're not connected to actually what's helping young people. It seems crazy to say that like hip hop can help the education. No, it can. It's proven. We've shown it. People have shown it. It's not just me. The people who have been on the show can prove it. So why aren't we doing it? I would have to say that if neither political party wants to look at these forward-thinking ideas or these radical ideas to increase everyone's education level, then I might wonder if either party wants a more educated citizenship, right? I might wonder, don't you want smart people? Don't you want kids to be smart? But if neither one of you is taking on these ideas that I know exist, like I said, I'm just a guy, but I know they exist. And, I'm just started watching Silo and I'm like, it's green outside. I know it's green outside. I'm sorry. It's the first episode. I'm not spoiling anything. But she's saying it's green outside. Don't you believe me? I know this works. I got hundreds of people that know this works. Why aren't we doing it? So anyway, that's it. Thank you, Jesse. The intro beat and audio samples for the podcast with Cornell, Obama, KRS, and Grandmaster Cat. By the way, I produced the theme song to the show. I produced that. So I'm just like, pat on my back. I did that. So Jesse, thanks for rocking with me. I see some stuff in the chats. Thanks, Tyler. Diego, bringing up Immortal Technique as a perfect example of hip hop controversy. Well, yeah, absolutely. Rip to Nipsey, I guess. Yeah. Nipsey Hussle, of course. Flow Story, big me up earlier. I appreciate that. Diego was in here. Dialectics MC was up in here. Rated R had some comments. And a bunch of people were in here. We had some first timers. It was dope. I was a little rambly tonight. I just kind of all over the place. It was kind of a mind dump. Like I had a lot of things on my mind. I shared some stories for the newsletter. I put it down here again. Please, I hope you subscribe to the newsletter. We're over 1,500 subscribers right now. We have a Discord now. If anyone on Discord, y'all rock on Discord. I'll put it in the chat. I don't know, I guess that's the best way to do it. We're starting to have these conversations during the week. You know what I mean? Like a place to be that we don't have to just listen to me doing this or the guests and be in the chat. Like it's an ongoing thing. So if you know Discord, you understand, you get it. Like, oh, that makes sense. It's like a community. It's cool. If you're not sure about Discord, it's sort of like, I don't know, maybe like a Facebook group or a Slack or Teams, Microsoft Teams, but on topic, and we can kind of moderate it. And it's not like public social media where anybody can come and kind of wreck shop and be toxic, or you be on a platform. A lot of people don't want to be on X anymore because they don't like the Nazi saluting Elon Musk. I'm just saying it happened and that's crazy, but whatever. But it's also not that crazy, but it's crazy. It's crazy, but I'm also like, I'm not surprised, but I'm surprised. So anyway, I digress. Discord is there. We can kind of keep things amongst ourselves. It's in the chat. Please come visit us on Discord if you're there. Who said something? Rated R. I'm new here and I apologize if I came in wrong. Must have been at the wrong time. But I like your style. But thank you. I appreciate you. No, it's all good. Like this is important. I appreciate that. That's okay. You didn't come off wrong at all. We have a discussion. We have a dialogue. We smart people trying to figure out the world, man. That's how it's going to be sometimes. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the subscribe. I didn't even ask people subscribe, like thumbs up and do all the things. You could, I have a Patreon. I didn't even do any of that tonight. Tonight was just like, let's just kick it and just like figure it out. You know, I wasn't as structured mentally as I normally am. But I hope you got the gist. And maybe you came in at a different time and now you got it, or you're watching on the replay and you're like, this guy's all over the place. Absolutely 100%. I'm all over the place. Go back through the archives, check the interviews. You saw a clip of the interview I did. The interviews are much less, rambly. They're very structured. They're beautiful people doing wonderful things. And I believe that they can help, like, really improve the country. I don't know what's going to happen in the next few years. Maybe that dude, Trump, is going to make things better for everyone. I suspect that it's going to be kind of chaotic and complicated at the very least. I have my own personal, obviously, opinions and political leanings. I'm trying to say that, honestly, the only thing that I've seen in my lifetime, or certainly in my adult life, that actually has the ability or just the vibes, right, of being able to like get people together that necessarily aren't from different like ways of life and thinking, but we can like agree on something, has been hip hop. So I'm trying to find a way. And through it, some of that is like structure stuff in education and science and technology and things we talk about. And I'm trying to figure it out. And we got a bunch of people. It's not just me. I got a bunch of people. We got a little community going. And we're trying to figure out a way to make the world a better place, starting with America. Because hip hop can save the world too. It's just, I got that domain name and we're going to do that show next. We're just trying to build this one up first. It can actually like really help make the world a better place for people. And I think that politically and out there in the world, people get caught up in ideas. And I don't think most of what we hear about from either side politically, and I'm saying like, man, I think the progressive party, I think the progressive leaning folk have a lot of the answers, just to be honest, just to keep it real with y'all. I don't think that the sort of, Democrat, Republican, like two-party system is helpful for us. And I think that hip hop not only has some ideas and way of seeing things, but it's also the third party way of thinking. It's when hip hop first came, they didn't like it. You couldn't get it on the radio, even black radio in New York. Like they were like, "What is this? We don't like this," and like they didn't put it on the radio. And hip hop was like, "All right, we'll just do it in the park." And they're like, "Well, you can't, we're not gonna like power it." And I'm like, "Well, we'll steal electricity from the light posts and we'll like hijack the electricity." And they were like, "All right, well, we're gonna stop you. We're gonna make records, but you have to follow contracts that are really terrible." And they were like, "Well, all right, we're gonna just make mixtapes and do it outside of the purview of the record label." Like, you can't do that. I'm like, "Yeah, we can." Like, hip hop's never. And even in the beginning, like Grandmaster Flash, like two turntables. And I remember in his memoirs and his talking, he was like touching the record was taboo. You weren't supposed to touch the record. Two turntables going back and forth. A crossfader like really didn't exist. When a DJ listens to what's happening on that turntable while this turntable's playing, like you're queuing it up, so you're listening to what's happening here, so you know when to come in. That didn't exist. Like he invented that. So I just look at the ingenuity, the inventiveness, and I say that it's always been something that was really counterculture. And a lot of people think that doesn't exist anymore because it's become such a lucrative part of, popular culture and the music business. And I'm telling you, as I've tried to tell you now for an hour and a half, anyone who's listening, giving some examples, giving some stories, and giving some testimony, that it still has that. It's always had that, and it always will. So let's just keep exploring it. Let's keep using it as our muse, the hip hop spirit, the hip hop mindset, the hip hop way of doing things, making $1 out of 15 cents, looking at something, coming in this way, being from, any walk of life, but being able to be accepted. Like there's something there, y'all. And if we keep exploring it together, we might find it. So become a patron if you want, patreon.com/Manny Faces. I wouldn't mind. It helps keep the lights on. No one pays me to do this, so y'all really help support. The newsletter is very important. It's dope. Every 2 weeks or so, collection of the stories, recent stuff, a reminder of a video I might have posted, and sometimes I give you an editorial. Oh, and dope upcoming events, including, and it's getting late, so I'm gonna not run through them all, but just so you know, I'll give you a few real quick, and then if you want to know more, just go sign up for the newsletter. A couple of calls for submissions. There's a global journal of hip hop culture. There's a journal run by the folks at Words, Beats, and Life. You could write and put in your essays and your research and all that stuff. That's there's a call for submission on the 31st of January, which happens to be my birthday, the end of the month. So happy early birthday to me. The Next Level International Traveling Artist Residency. If you're a rap artist or a DJ or a visual artist or an MC or a filmmaker or a dancer, you could sign up with the Next Level. It's run through the United States State Department. It's actually a government entity. I hope that it doesn't get funding cut, because I when you hear this attack on woke ideology and all these things, they may look at the Department of, and the DOGE, right? The Department of Government Efficiency. They may look at the U.S. Department of State, and they may say the Next Level, it's called the Next Level Residency Program. And what it does is it takes a group of hip hop artists and it sends them across the world to a community, and it links them up with local artists in that community, often in a conflict region. This is something I talked to about earlier, about hip hop being used as a tool to help reduce or transform conflict. It's literally the reason the program exists. It's part of their core ideology is to use hip hop to help reduce conflict in other parts of the world. They've done this for 15 years. They've taken groups 4 or 5 times a year, except through pandemic, and they go to different parts of the world. They bring hip hop artists. The hip hop artists match up with local artists. They do music and they vibe, but they're also teaching conflict, conflict resolution, but the conflict transformation, taking the conflict redirection, right? So they're teaching, this is part of what they do. So it's Americans saying, hey, we have a music and a culture that actually fosters inclusivity and belonging and being together. And we're going to teach y'all, we're going to learn together. I don't want to say teach y'all, because if you listen to the whole interview I did with the folks from the program, it's we're not telling y'all how to do hip hop. We're not telling y'all how to live your life, but it's through this community, through this, what do you call it? Back and forth, collaborative work. We're going to work towards learning how to reduce or redirect conflict through our collaborative music making time together. And it's been incredibly effective. But when you hear some of the politicians are anti-woke, anti-DEI, anti-inclusivity, they may cut the funding for this program because they don't understand. So when y'all talk anti-woke, anti-this, some of the stuff y'all don't even understand is happening is actually beneficial. Now, what does that do for us in America if we're going overseas and we're, planting the seeds of conflict resolution? Well, it actually is a form of diplomacy. And just like we have diplomats that go to every country in the world, we have diplomacy through music and the arts since the 1940s. So this is something that we do as United States. It actually helps our the outlook of America in the world, where a lot of times they might hate us because of, some war stuff we did. And here's a way for them to say, okay, I don't always approve of the government and the thing that you're doing, but the people are good. The art is good. Not only that, what we learned from working with communities overseas in terms of conflict resolution, we bring that back here, and now we can apply that domestically, and we can use that to help areas and conflict in America. So it's a beneficial program for humanity. It's a beneficial program for the United States, and it's the kind of thing that might get swept away because certainly this new government, and I wouldn't even be surprised if the old government, had done it. But at least I think they're more open to these ideas. I think the new government is so closed-minded because they have this mandate to film that there's no wokeness and no DEI and none of that stuff. And this is the kind of thing that might get swept up on it. I don't expect that the new Department of Education is going to be welcoming hip-hop education pedagogy. It's not going to happen for the next 4 years. It's not going to happen because they're going to view that as, targeting or uplifting one group of people instead of another. And yeah, it kind of is because you're trying to reduce the disparity, but it's also universal. So you can't really hate it, but they will. And we're not going to make that progress in the next 4 years. So what we have to do, if we care about it, forget your political leanings. If you want your kids to be better educated, it's not going to be by taking this and that out of the school. It's going to be by bringing in to the school something that might be more engaging and interesting for your kid. You could teach them things and you could take stuff out so they don't learn all the histories of all the things, which I have a big problem with. But regardless of that, they're not even going to learn that because they still don't care. They're still not interested. So we have to be very careful that the tools that we're talking about get used for the right reasons. And we have some work to do to make that happen collectively, because if they figure out that they could use the tools that we're talking about in highly problematic or propaganda-filled ways, then we're in trouble. So we have to make sure, if you're aligned with what I'm talking about, we have some work to do to make sure that all of this happens the way it's supposed to, and not in ways that take advantage of or, are sort of used against the ideals from which they came. Longer conversation for another night. My name is Manny Faces. I hope you enjoyed the talk and the chat and the stories. And we'll take it out with this. Kids in their beginning learning stages, simple little beats with words, even the voices they love to hear and recognize. I mean, that's how we learned how to, like, our ABCs, right? Our ABCs is a rhyme. Our ABC song is a rap song, kinda. You know what I mean? The cleanup song, rhymes, music, all that stuff. And yeah, and people are gonna, if you're against this, you're really gonna be against this. I think that it should be incorporated into the lives of children as early as possible. Hip-hop based pedagogy, as it's called, like fancy words, but hip-hop methods of teaching should be introduced to young people as early as possible. The other benefit of that, and I talk about this in an article, in a video, is that young people will understand that hip hop is more than what you might hear on the radio or what you might look at and turn your nose up to and not really like musically at a younger age. So they're going to understand from a very early age that rap and hip hop is not just music and entertainment and, all the negative things that you associate with rap and hip hop, right? Misogyny and violence and, twerking and all the things that you might say, all the things. They're going to learn early on. What we know is that that's not all that hip hop is. That's not all the rap is. But when you start introducing it to them when they're much, much younger as a way of teaching, as a way of expression, as a way of community, early in their educational lives, they much earlier will understand it as a tool for improving their lives and worldviews and being expressive, and they'll recognize it as something that's good. And so when they get older and when they hear that other stuff that we don't necessarily like, they'll understand the difference because they've been exposed to the positive. I don't like using positive and negative. They'll be exposed to those aspects, the community building, the expressiveness, the learning, the educational tool, the way to, collaborate. They'll have learned that is what hip hop does from a very early age. If you don't have that in schools, then they get out into the real world. They're 8, 9, 10, 12 years old, and they're starting to see and hear, and then they believe that that's what hip hop is because that's what they're exposed to. You teach it to them earlier, and they won't be fooled when they get older. They'll be like, that's that bullish. That's entertainment and music, but my hip hop is this. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great? You can still have it. We still need to listen, like I said, when we came up, you know, we talk about all this over sexualization, but when we came up, Mobb Deep's gunshots was making you levitate, and we wanted a girl to put it in your mouth. Like, you know, it was, and Lil' Kim used to be scared of it, but then she put lips to it, and then she handled it like a real, like, you know what I mean? Like, we had that too, and we could have that. The thing is, we need to know the difference between entertainment and reality, and sometimes those lines get blurred, and I'm saying that if you actually introduce hip-hop and rap to young people in schools, in their daycare, kindercare, from day one, and you bring it up, it'll teach them better. It'll give them a better way to express themselves. It'll open them to the idea of mental health therapy that incorporates these same ideas. It'll help them improve their engagement, all the things in school that we want them to do early in life. And the side benefit of that is that they won't come out into the world being exposed to all this ratchety stuff and think that that's the only thing that their culture offers. They'll be like, oh, that's for the turn up. That's for the club. That's for when I want to shake my ass. But I already came up with this understanding that hip hop is all these things. That's kind of what we got when we were coming up and we heard, you know, KRS-One and Public Enemy and Poor Righteous Teachers and Brand Nubian and, you know, artists that were kicking knowledge. And we also had, you know, the party music and the shake your ass music and the raunchy shit. Like, we came up and we had both of those things because we came up early. Now, the kids don't get exposed to any of the knowledge-based stuff, any of that stuff. I'm not saying that one's better than the other. I want it all. I want it all. I want to shake my ass. I don't want to hear Immortal Technique in the club. I don't want to be grinding up to, you know what I mean, you know, like thoughtful, like scientific rap. I'm not trying to do that. But I need to know that exists, and I'm saying that we need it earlier. We need exposure to the kid. So if we have a way to improve young people, to improve young people's education, if we have a way to improve young people's lives educationally through rap and hip hop, and we do it earlier, then we get them on the right track earlier. And this is, again, all walks of life, all demographics. And the side benefit of that is they actually come up with a much better cultural understanding of hip hop music and culture so that they know that there's a big difference. Why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't we do that? Because we're not doing it now. They're not getting the added bonus of being better in school at an early age, which we know works because, like y'all said in the chat, like if I was learning by music, I'd learn faster. I'd be more intrigued. I'd be more interested. Yeah. Yes, of course. And so we've developed ways to do that. We got teachers that have developed ways to do that from an early age. And I'm saying that when you do that, young people will come up knowing that rap and hip hop is a teaching tool, a collaborative building tool, a self-expression, tool, a self-love and self-care tool, so that when we get exposed to whatever's happening in the music business, they're going to know the difference. Oh man, wouldn't that be great? Isn't that what we want? Come on. Anyway, so that's that. Newsletter, mannyfaces.substack.com. I hope y'all, first of all, thank y'all for rocking. We had a lot of people on tonight. And I don't know if it was just the title of the thing that attracted some new people. If you're with me, I'm here every Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have guests again. So I'll be talking to the people that do this work so you get a better understanding. Like, more like we'll go deep, not just me saying it. I'll bring them on. They'll talk about it. They'll talk about the receipts they have. But in the meantime, go back and check the archives. Please give us a thumbs up if you liked what you heard tonight. Please give us a subscribe. We're on Discord. We have the newsletter. We have a subreddit. I'm sorry if you're on Reddit, it's hip hop culture. And yeah, that's about it. Peace. Hey, Mickey, thank you. Appreciate y'all for checking me out. I'm just trying to spread the gospel about all the people doing good work. Go back to the archives, pick a topic that you like, and go down a rabbit hole with me. I'll be back next week, 9 o'clock. Higher power willing. So thank y'all. Peace. I'll take y'all out one time. Silent Night, if you're still watching, I'm sorry I didn't do this earlier. I got off on my thing. One of the things, it is Martin Luther King Day. We'll take it out. One of the projects I work on is a podcast called Newsbeat, and we actually do journalism, it's like news, but we incorporate hip hop into the news. And you might want to look for that if you're in the podcast app. or Spotify. Look up Newsbeat. It's 2 words, Newsbeat. Our very first, we've done this for years, and we've done a lot of topics on, social justice issues, kind of mass incarceration. We've looked at, the movement to close youth prisons. We looked at the redlining stuff that I talked about earlier. That's where I learn all this stuff from the show that we do. The very first episode we ever did was an episode called MLK, What They Don't Teach You in Schools. And it talked about how we all learn about Dr. Martin Luther King's speech. We referenced earlier tonight. What do you call it? I have a dream that one day, my kids will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And we talked all night about how hip hop is the only place in the world, that actually happens. And so that's cool. But we talked on this show about the fact that Martin Luther King's dream, this I have a dream speech, is something we all learn when we're kids, everybody. But that's often all we learn about Martin Luther King. We don't realize that some years later, he referred to that dream as a nightmare. He talked about that dream as being sort of like impossible, an impossible dream. Very hard to realize because of, racism and the way of the world. And he talked later, a lot of people don't know this, later in his life, he was becoming a little bit more, radical in his thinking. And one of the things that he had led was a campaign called the Poor People's Campaign, where he was at that point saying, racial justice is important, and I still ride for that. But what I realize is the real evil in America is, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't speak like Martin Luther King did, but is the economic injustice. And economic injustice happens across all races. So poor blacks, poor whites, poor Latinos. And the Poor People's Campaign was a movement to gather all of the poor people, all of the economically distressed people, all of the economically oppressed people in America, and bring them all together, and then go to Washington and, as he says, and get our check. Like, we coming for our money. We coming for the disparity that you've caused us all, and we're coming together. And then he was murdered. Make of that what you will. We did an episode about this to let people know, because not everyone knows this, and I'm going to show you 2 quick snippets from that episode, but to hear the full thing, it's a podcast. It doesn't exist on YouTube. It's only on a podcast app, so go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and look for Newsbeat. It's our latest episode. We republished it at the top. And here's 2 clips from it to show you the kind of journalism that we do, where we actually incorporate hip-hop into the telling of news. Here's what we did. Check it out.
Legacy.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. So you saw what it said there. This was a quote. A nation that continues year after year to spend more on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death. If you know anything about the United States government, we have spent more on military, $800-something billion a year, even though we're not at war. It goes up every year. We spend hundreds of billion dollars on military defense while they're trying to cut social programs. So King was like, yeah, that's not good. And of course, like I mentioned, he was embarking on the Poor People's Campaign. He envisioned a movement that was nonviolent but militant, as disruptive as recent riots, but minus the property damage. They were coming on some rah-rah. And then he says, a multiracial army of the poor were to descend on Washington to demand an economic bill of rights. So again, all the poor people. I'm not rich, bro. Don't let the cameras fool you. I went into so much debt and they're coming after me every day because I need to like get right. But everyone who isn't like born into money or have a lot of money, everybody, imagine they were all to come to Washington together and say, hey, wait a minute. All this black and white and anti this and anti-immigrant and, you know, you're trying to pit us against each other because we're in the same boat. It's us against you. Basically, Bernie Sanders' 99% idea, right? And that's what likely got him killed. We talk about this in the episode. Again, it's Newsbeat, 2 words, Newsbeat on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And the way we incorporate, this was our pilot edition, our first episode. And we had the people talking and kind of explaining this. We had a reverend who was talking about Martin Luther King's, legacy. And it's a great episode. And then what we do is we incorporate original lyrical contributions by brilliant independent hip hop artists. So it's like Democracy Now! And Black Thought from the Roots had a podcast baby. So what you heard there is the beat that rides behind the episode. And then our man Silent Night, who you heard from earlier today, my man, my mellow right here, this handsome fella from New Jersey, who's an incredibly dope artist, been in the game for a good minute, used to be on Raucous Records before they folded, has done music. The front man of the band called Fuse. His song opens up our episode. His song Ogre, you might have heard him if you tuned in at the beginning of the show. He was our initial artist. He's the artist in residence for this program. And he kicked this verse to kind of break down what we were talking about in the episode. I'm going to play that clip. I'm going to encourage you to check it out. And then we'll be out of here. Silent Night, y'all. Wait. I have to rewind it because I didn't have to
see the movement, the memory, epitome of truth, the power. They couldn't let them be statues now. Before it was the effigy, the end of Jim Crow, enter the SCLC. Non-violent, but nothing close to timid. Master of the boycott, protest, and sit-ins. A noble man who even won the Peace Prize. Yet they threw him in the cell almost 30 times. 3 letters and you know who it is. They try to boil him down in just 4 words. Too simplistic. They hunted him down, labeled him a communist. Now they applaud after they whitewashed it. A champion, a man for all people. Uncle Sam ain't want him to branch out. He reached too far and he pushed too hard. A red alert, so they did what empires do and killed the messenger. A true legacy.
So there you have it, y'all. A little snippet. Our original production called MLK, What They Won't Teach You in School. It's available on Newsbeat. The Newsbeat podcast, Apple Podcasts, just Google Newsbeat podcast, 2 words, Newsbeat podcast, and you'll find it. So shouts to, hey, Cole Hart, thank you. Cole Hart Cuzzo says, nice song. That's our man, SK, Silent Night. You can find his music at silentnight.bandcamp.com. And he opens this show. So if you want to hear more from him before you go do that, I'm going to stop the show now. You go back to the beginning. His song's in the beginning. Because I work with him a lot and I play a song at the beginning of the show. Anyway, it's your man, Manny Faces. Thank you for rocking with me.
You're smart.
Manny Faces.
You sick for this one.
I pressed the wrong button. I was gonna press this.
You're a smart motherfucker. That's right.
But that's also true. So anyway, we'll be back next Monday, 9 p.m. I have a great intro to the show, but I don't have an outro yet. So I'm just gonna say bye.